Imagine an athlete who never loses. Not once. Not in a squeaker. Not in a race where they had to dig deep and find something extra in the final stretch. Never. They simply win. Effortlessly. Dominantly. As if competition itself was a mild inconvenience arranged for their amusement. That was Black Caviar. By the spring of 2012, this Australian thoroughbred had done something no racehorse at her level had managed in modern history. 21 consecutive victories, not against weak fields, against the finest horses the Southern Hemisphere had ever produced. And she didn't just beat them, she humiliated them. She crossed finish lines with her jockey barely moving, ears pricked forward like she was out for a morning jog, while everyone else was dying behind her. She wasn't just a racehorse, she was a national identity, something untouchable. But in the corridors of European racing, a quiet, aristocratic skepticism was growing. The argument went like this: yes, she's unbeaten, but Australia isn't Europe. The fields are thinner. The tracks are different. Until she comes here, races our horses, on our ground, in our atmosphere. The number means nothing. Her team heard it, and they decided to answer it, not with words, but with action. They would ship her 10,000 miles across the globe. They would place her unblemished legacy on the line in front of the entire sporting world at Royal Ascot, the most prestigious, most formal, most high-pressure racing stage on Earth, right in front of Queen Elizabeth II. What nobody knew was that she would arrive damaged, carrying a hidden injury her team was desperate to conceal, and that her jockey would make one of the most shocking errors in the history of sport. This is the story of the most terrifying 3 minutes in Australian racing history. Getting a racehorse to the other side of the planet is not a logistics problem. It is a military operation wrapped in controlled panic. Black Caviar weighed over 1,200 pounds. She was a finely engineered biological machine, years of precision training, a cardiovascular system tuned to a frequency most animals never reach. Every element of her routine was sacred. And now, they were loading her onto a plane for 30 hours across multiple continents, asking her to perform at the highest level on Earth 1 week later. To prevent deep vein thrombosis, a genuine risk for horses on long-haul flights, her team fitted her with a custom-made compression suit for the journey. She was monitored every hour, her food controlled, her hydration managed with surgical precision. They weren't transporting a horse, they were transporting a crown. Then, she landed in England, and England was nothing like home. Australian racing is loud and raw and gloriously working class. Black Caviar was the people's horse, celebrated in pubs, beloved by punters, adored the way Australians love anything that represents their best selves on the world stage. Royal Ascot is the precise opposite of all that. Top hats are mandatory. The ceremony is immaculate. The whole institution operates with a kind of inherited reverence that makes you feel underdressed just watching it on television. This was the most blue-blooded racing environment on Earth, and into it walked a horse from the Southern Hemisphere who had never left home. But the culture shock wasn't the most dangerous thing happening behind the scenes, because when the vets examined her after the journey, they found something that sent a quiet ripple of dread through the entire camp. A muscle tear. Hidden. Internal, ticking quietly inside her like a countdown. The travel had taken more from her than anyone had anticipated. Her team faced a decision that would define everything. Pull her, protect the record, fly home safely, or back her, the way she had always backed herself, with everything. They chose to run. June 23, 2012, Royal Ascot. Tens of thousands of people packed into the stands. Champagne flutes raised, hats tilted at precise angles. And in the royal box, Queen Elizabeth II, a genuine racing enthusiast who understood exactly what this afternoon meant. 11,000 miles away, in the middle of an Australian winter night, public squares were filled. Pubs were standing room only. Families gathered around screens in living rooms, wrapped in blankets. An entire country had refused to go to sleep. The Diamond Jubilee Stakes, 6 furlongs, straight up the famous Ascot Hill, one of the most demanding stretches of turf in world racing. It punishes horses who are anything less than perfect. The gates opened. and for a moment, everything felt right. She found her stride immediately. That distinctive rolling power, the one that made seasoned observers shake their heads, carried her through the field with authority. Up the hill, to the front. Despite the muscle quietly tearing further with every stride, she moved like the machine everyone had come to see. The crowd, the restrained, ceremonial, top-hat Royal Ascot crowd, began to genuinely roar. There were 50 yards left. The race was over. Everyone watching knew it. The gap was clear. The finish line was right there. And that is the exact moment her jockey, Luke Nolan, made his decision. He looked around. He saw the margin. He heard the crowd. And in a fraction of a second, he calculated that this was done. Finished. Won. He dropped his hands. In racing, dropping your hands means you stop riding. You let the horse coast. You do it when a race is so completely over that pushing further would be pointless. 50 yards is not nothing. On the outside of the field, a French mare named Moonlight Cloud had not stopped running. While Black Caviar began to coast, Moonlight Cloud's jockey was asking for absolutely everything. Every stride, every reserve, every last fragment of fuel. And she was delivering. The gap began to close. People in the stands saw it first. That slow, horrible recognition moving through the crowd like a wave. Hands to mouths, voices dropping, the roar fracturing into something frightened and uncertain. Nolan saw her coming. In the final strides, he desperately gathered his reins, tried to wake his horse back up. But Black Caviar was already in neutral. Her engine had been switched off. They crossed the line together. At least, that is what it looked like. To every eye in those stands, to every Australian staring at a screen in the middle of the night, it looked like the unthinkable. It looked like 22 races of perfection had been erased in a single moment of misplaced confidence. The track went quiet, in a way that racetracks almost never go quiet. Nobody celebrated. Nobody moved. Not the crowd. Not the connections. Not the Queen. They waited for the photo finish. The high-speed camera that strips a moment down to its brutal, irrefutable truth. The seconds stretched. The silence deepened. The photograph was released. And there it was. A nose. A single nose. By a margin so impossibly small it barely registered as a measurement, Black Caviar had held on. 22 from 22. The perfect record survived. Barely, messily, by the most terrifying margin imaginable. When the vets examined her afterward, the real story emerged. She had won that race with severely torn quadriceps muscles, an injury that would have retired most horses before they reached the final furlong. She had crossed that line on something beyond physical condition, something that had no medical name. Call it will. Call it the blueprint of a creature that had not yet learned how to be beaten. She finished her career 25 from 25, undefeated, untied, never caught. But it is this race, the one she almost lost, that defines her. Because greatness is never really revealed on the days when everything goes right. It reveals itself on the days when everything falls apart. When the body is broken and the human beside you makes the worst mistake of his career, and the entire world is watching and there is no margin left for anything except heart. On her worst day, in a foreign country, carrying an injury that had no business letting her finish, Black Caviar was still the best horse alive. That's not a record. That's a legend.